Afternoon, I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Tuesday, October 28th. Let's play a little catch-up. Late yesterday afternoon, the blog posted a nice story by Benji Hardy about the legislature's beginning discussions on teacher pay in the next 2 years and what the budget will be. They talked approvingly of a small increase in the beginning pay for teachers, maybe up to the range of $31,000 a year, and perhaps some additional amounts for teachers who have greater amounts of education and experience. It's a small amount of money, not a great deal for teachers, but the interesting thing is the legislature seems to think that school districts are wasting money and can somehow afford these increased mandates from the state by paying for it themselves. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's what the Supreme Court said in its Lakeview decision. I think we got a hard row to hoe. This inspired me to take a look at some of the issues that are popping up in the election campaign this year. We know the state correction department thinks it needs a $100 million new prison. We have a number of legislative candidates, mostly Republicans, talking about the need to end parole and keep people in prison a longer time. This means an even greater increase in the problem of overstuffed prisons. KRK today reported that the state is $5 million behind already in paying sheriffs to take care of prisoners who ought to be in state prison. That's not all. We've got legislative candidates who want to kill Obamacare. That's fine. That might make you feel better, but it'll cost the state tens of millions of dollars. That's now propping up the rest of the budget. When we talk about education, I do sometimes wonder if people who run for the Arkansas legislature passed arithmetic in high school. In other political news that we missed last night because it happened late, the Arkansas Supreme Court in a unanimous decision said yes, the minimum wage proposed increase can remain on the ballot. It turned down the lawsuit by Jackson T. Stevens Jr., an immensely wealthy man of inherited wealth who thought it was a terrible thing to have this on the ballot. The Supreme Court made him very unhappy by saying, though there may have been problems with notary signatures, the first thing to do on a ballot issue is to count the signatures facially, and if they meet the initial qualifications, then you can have a fuller vetting process. It seems fair. Doesn't mean you can't disqualify a measure for fraud, but he let them be counted. They got enough legitimate signatures. People are going to get a chance to vote. That immediately raised the question is, will millionaire banker French Hill of Little Rock finally finish his study and decide whether he will or he won't vote for an increase in the state minimum wage? He hates the minimum wage. He just can't bring himself to say he'll vote for the state increase. And at this point, I don't think even if he did change his mind, you could believe him or expect it would have much impact. He just doesn't like poor folks to make more than $6.25 an hour and $6.25 an hour in Arkansas. Easy for him to say, having just made $5 million selling a bank from which a number of his poor employees got laid off to the economies of scale necessarily when a bigger bank buys a smaller one. Also in politics, we learned today that Tom Cotton's Leadership PAC, it's a federal creation, is pouring money into state legislative races to help his Republican friends. The biggest recipient of money so far is Stacey Hurst. If I were a Mark Pryor supporter, I wouldn't be too happy with Stacey Hurst that she's getting Coke money via Tom Cotton to run against running that race. Elsewhere, the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee has bought multi-million-dollar TV ad buy in support of Mark Pryor. Is it enough? Are people sick of it? I don't know. Their ads that are all about Tom Cotton's voting record. Really, I think Tom Cotton's pretty open about his voting record. The question is whether people in Arkansas really do want the much restricted style of government that Tom Cotton has believed in since he was a young college student. Common Cause issued a report today that said Arkansas has made some improvements, but not nearly enough in its voting procedures to make it easier to vote and make the voting experience efficient and reliable. We don't have good online voter registration at all, for one thing. We don't have post-audit checks of our election machines to see if they work properly. We need to do better. The current Secretary of State, Mark Martin, did nothing during his 4 years in office to move to replace our outmoded voter systems, just to name one issue that probably is worth considering when voters go to the polls. Speaking of the polls, the Arkansas Wildlife Federation today said it opposes Issue 1. This is the proposed constitutional amendment, from the legislature that gives the legislature total control over agency rules and regulations. Wildlife Federation says this creates new bureaucracy, but it also raises the issue of whether the legislature could get into the business, for example, of setting hunting seasons and bag limits for the Game and Fish Commission. Don't think we want that. Brandon Barber, the once high-flying Northwest Arkansas real estate developer, was sentenced in federal court on his money laundering and bank fraud charges. He gets 65 months in federal prison. A number of other co-defendants are going to go down with him. Busy day. That's all for me today. I'll be back tomorrow.